Hi. In today's lecture, we'll be studying about the direct bending and torsional loading acting on machine elements and associated theories of failure. We'll also be studying about certain terms such as preferred numbers, fits, tolerances, and factor of safety. Fits. Fits is the degree of tightness or looseness between two parts in an element. There are three types of fit: clearance fit, interference fit, and transition fit. Clearance fit is when the size of the shaft is actually less than the mating hole in the assembly. The difference is always positive. In interference fit, the clearance is always negative, which means that the shaft is bigger or larger than the mating hole in the assembly. Tolerances. Tolerances is the difference between the upper and the lower limit in a dimension. Unilateral tolerance means there is change in the nominal size only on one side, either in the positive side or in the negative side. Bilateral tolerance is change in the dimensions or in the nominal size on both sides, both in the positive and the negative sides. Unilateral tolerance is generally preferred in industries as it changes the tolerance value only on one side. Preferred numbers. So preferred numbers are the market available sizes for different machine components. They are actually represented as ratios. These ratios are known as R5, R10, R20, and R40. These four series are called as the basic series. They are nothing but the integral powers of 10. So, so these are the preferred numbers under the four basic series: R5, R10, R20, and R40. And these are the preferred sizes available in the market for different machine components. Next, we'll move on to the different forces acting on machine components. Some of the basic or basic forces acting on machine components are tensile force, compressive force, shear force, or it can be torsional or bending force. So here we can see how tension force, compression force, and shear force acts. So tension force is two forces acting outwards. Compression force is two forces acting inwards. Shear force is when two objects they move parallel to each other on a surface. There are two types of loading. One is static loading and dynamic loading. Static loading is the load which doesn't change over time, whereas dynamic loading are time dependent loads. It can either be accelerating or decelerating. Now that we have seen the basics of the tension, compression, shear force, and with different types of loads such as static and dynamic loading, let us move on to the details of torsional and bending forces. So the first one is torsional forces or torsional loading. So torsion is nothing but a rotating or a twisting force. So the equation associated with the torsional force is tau by r is equal to T by J equal to C theta by L. Tau is the torsional shear stress acting on the outer surface of the shaft where it is maximum. And R is the radius of the shaft, T is the torque or twisting moment, J is the polar moment of inertia, C is the modulus of rigidity, L is the length of the shaft, and theta is the angle of twist in radians over a length L. Here the cross section is a circle. So this is a cylindrical shaft. So for different cross sections, the equation can be modified and written. So this picture clearly shows the torsional force acting on the cylindrical shaft. So these are some of the assumptions considered while deriving the torsional equation. So the first assumption is that the material of the shaft is uniform throughout. The twist along the length is uniform. The normal cross sections before and after the twist remain the same. All the diameters of the normal cross section which were straight before twist remain straight with their magnitude unchanged after twist. The maximum shear stress induced in the shaft due to the twisting moment does not exceed its elastic limit value. I have derived the torsional stress equation So this equation is for a solid cylindrical shaft of radius r. So this equation T, where you calculate the torsion or the torsional force, is associated with the design based on rigidity. Here we can see the equation for a hollow shaft with the diameter, the outer diameter is d naught and the inner diameter is di. And here we can see the equation for calculating the torque T when we need to design the shaft based on strength. Next is torsional stress when shafts are in series and in parallel. So when two shafts are said to be in series, torque acts on one end and a resulting or a resisting torque acts on the other end. In that case, theta is equal to theta 1 plus theta 2. So the equation can be written as TL1 by C1J1 plus TL2 by C2J2. If both the shafts are made up of the same material, then C1 and C2 will be equal to C, and the equation can be modified as such. The shafts are said to be in parallel when a torque occurs or a torque acts at the point where both the shafts are joined. So a resisting torque occurs on both the ends T1 and T2. So T is always equal to T1 plus T2. So theta 1 will be equal to theta 2, T1 plus T2 equal to T, using which the equation can be derived. If the shafts are made up of the same material, then C1 will be equal to C2, which is equal to C. So next we will move on to the bending stress in beams. Similar to the torsional stress equation, the bending stress equation is M by I equal to sigma by Y equal to E by R. M is the bending moment at a given section, sigma is the bending stress, I is the moment of inertia across the neutral axis, Y is the distance from the neutral axis to the extreme fiber, E is the Young's modulus of the material, and R is the radius of curvature. So this image clearly shows the bending moment acting on a shaft of square cross section. Similar to torsional equation, there are certain assumptions in deriving the bending stress equation. So the material of the beam should be perfectly similar or homogeneous. The material should obey Hooke's law. The transverse sections before bending should remain the same even after bending. Each layer of the beam is free to expand or contract independently of the layer above and below it. The Young's modulus is the same in tension and compression, and the loads are applied in a plane of bending only. The next is principal stresses and principal planes. A normal stress is generally calculated at an angle when the shear stress is considered as 0. Such a stress is known as principal stress. So here we can see these are the stresses acting in a given coordinate system along the x-axis and the y-axis in the coordinate system. So these are normal stresses. Principal stresses are when the stresses act at an angle theta p from the x-axis and from the y-axis respectively. So this is known as the principal stress, and the planes where the principal stresses act is known as the principal planes. So there are two stress values, which is the maximum principal stress value and the minimum principal stress value, and associated maximum shear stress. The maximum tensile shear stress, maximum compressive shear stress, and the maximum shear stress can be written from the corresponding maximum principal stress and maximum shear stress equations given above. There are different theories of failure associated with the maximum principal stress values for different machine components. The theories of failure include the Rankine's theory, Tresca's theory, St. Venant's theory, Hayes theory, Henke and von Mises theory. So, how can we predict failure? Ductile materials and brittle materials have different failures. For ductile materials, failure occurs at the onset of plastic deformation, whereas for brittle material, failure occurs at fracture. It is easy to predict failure when stress acts along one axis. When stress acts along different axes, it is difficult to predict failure. Sigma y is the yield strength for ductile materials. Sigma u is the ultimate strength for brittle materials. So the stresses acting on the body, sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, is a function of the ultimate and the yield strength for ductile and brittle materials respectively. Based on this, the different theories of failure have been developed. So the first theory of failure is Rankin's theory of failure. So here, according to this theory, the failure occurs when the maximum principal stress or normal stress reaches the limiting strength of a material in a simple tension test. So for ductile materials, it is the yield stress, and for brittle materials, it is the ultimate stress. Fs is a factor of safety. According to Guest or Tresca's theory, failure occurs when the maximum shear stress in a biaxial stress system reaches a value equal to the shear stress at the yield point. So tau max equal to tau at yield point divided by factor of safety. This theory is also used for ductile materials and hence the yield point stress. The Saint Venant's theory. According to this theory, the maximum principal strain in a biaxial stress system reaches a limiting value of a strain determined from a simple tensile stress. So tau epsilon max is equal to sigma T1 by E minus sigma T2 by M dot E. E is a Young's modulus, 1 by M is the Poisson's ratio. The Hayes theory. According to the Hayes theory, a failure occurs when the strain energy per unit volume in a biaxial stress system reaches a limiting strain energy per unit volume determined from a simple tension stress. So U1 will be equal to U2. If they are not equal, then there is said to be a failure. This theory is generally used for ductile materials. The Henke and von Mises theory states that a failure occurs when the distortion strain energy per unit volume in a biaxial stress system reaches the limiting distortion energy per unit volume determined from a simple tension test. So this test is also used for ductile materials. Hence, sigma YT is used. So all the theories of failure clearly show that when the stress value exceeds the maximum stress value, a failure occurs. Only when the stress value for brittle or ductile materials is well within the maximum stress value, we can prevent the occurrence of failures. So factor of safety. So what is factor of safety? It is nothing but the maximum stress divided by the design stress. Generally, factor of safety should be greater than 1 to prevent any failure in the design of the machine element. So before selecting a factor of safety, an engineer should consider the following points: the reliability of the property of material, the change of the properties of that material during working conditions, the reliability of the test results and accuracy of application of those results to actual machine parts, the reliability of the applied load, the certainty as to what type of failure will occur, the extent of simplifying assumptions, the extent of localized stress, the extent of initial stress set up during manufacture, the loss of life which will occur if a failure in the machine component occurs, and the loss of property if a failure in the machine component takes place. So considering the different factor of safety and the different theories of failure, appropriate designs of machine elements can be come up with. Thank you.